Okay, we're live here also.
Okay, let me turn the sound here.
Let's see, the volume is up. Hello, hello. Hello, two people out there, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Okay, you can hear me, it seems.
I don't hear you from here. Give me a second.
Huh? We have another telecast at the other end of the table. It's really multi-platform here. So we're waiting a little bit. Have patience, we're going to start soon. What do you see there, Esther, at the other end? Esther?
I'm working
What's
it out.
happening?
If it doesn't work, then we have a different option, a different mic that I have.
Too bad I can't hear you guys out there in Facebook land. We could sing a niggin together while we're waiting. Lady, you could sing a niggin.
Lady doesn't sing.
What?
He doesn't
It's
sing.
working.
Lady doesn't sing. It's working?
Yes,
Where's
it's
everyone
working.
else?
World
Where's
of
the Vara?
Amazing.
Rabbi came in, I
Try not
think.
to shake the table.
Rabbi
Because when
came
you
in.
shake the table, then this shakes.
Rabbi came in.
Okay?
Okay, you ready?
Oh, let's go in a
So we're
second.
live
We are live and the
in
mic is
real and
working.
virtual space. So let's very quickly review. We're learning about tshuva in the month of Elul. That's appropriate because it is the month of Elul. And we're approaching the midpoint in the month of Elul. And this mimer is the second mimer in Ukutei Torah that starts with a pasuk that says that I'm going to place a jewel, and the jewel is the jewel that's placed in the Choshen Mishpat, in the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. And it says that this will be a valuable stone. Now, the word stone here refers to there are 12 stones in the Choshen, and there's an argument that we quote here. There's an argument amongst the angels in the heaven as to which two stones are indicated here by the plural that I'm going to place stones, which two in particular. And one says it's the stone called the shoham, and the other says it's this stone called the yishpa. And this mimer is going to turn on understanding what are these two stones in our personal service, our personal avodah. And it's also going to turn on answering a question which when the angels had this discussion, Hashem himself spoke up and said, let the din be like both of you. One said, is it either this or is it that? And Hashem said, it's not an either or, it's a both. So this brings us, the Alter Rebbe says, to the month of Elul. Why? Because in the month of Elul, there are two kinds of things going on here. This is indicated in the pasuk in Shir HaShirim, Ani l'doidi v'doidi li. I am to my beloved. That's movement number one. That we, sitting around this table and out there in Facebook land, we Jewish people arouse ourselves to return to Him. And that provokes God. God hears us. He listens to us. And He's provoked by our yearning for Him to bring down great lights from above. So there's a motion above to below, and there's a motion above. There's a motion below to above, and there's a motion above to below, which is summed up in a mimer, a saying of the Zohar, that the Isarusa de Lisatu, arousal from below, creates an arousal from above. And that's what we're doing here. So we're talking about the process of tshuva. Tshuva means tashuv hay, to restore the hay. And what's tshuva? What is tshuva? So we're going to talk about this tonight. The class begins at the bottom of page Kuf Hay, 25, in the second column. Very bottom two lines. So let me just say one more thing briefly before we start. In last week's class, we talked about what tshuva is, what it means, Toshuv Hey. This is obviously a reference to Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. And the letter Hey, the second letter Hey, is broken away. What does it mean is broken away? God is never really broken. There's always a unity in everything, but we're broken. We're broken off from Him to the extent that we don't quite feel His presence in everything that we do. We don't quite see the godliness, the energetic of godly divinity that's underlying everything. And it's a very natural thing that we don't, because He put us in an animal soul. All of our animals are more interested in eating delicious cookies, popcorn, soda, yes, pure water, all those things, right? None of them are bad things, right? Except if you go to extreme. If you just eat cookies, for instance, it's not going to be so great. But we need these things. We need these things. And He knows that we need these things. He knows that we need to have these things that belong to the animal. Why do we call an animal? Because an animal, what does an animal do? He eats. He sleeps. He pastures. He wanders. Just like we do, right? And in a certain sense, tshuva is the idea that coming back from this place of wandering like an animal in the desert. And again, we're not meaning it in the sense of something really negative. It's not talking yet about sin even. Alter Rebbe has told us many times that tshuva is not mainly about returning from sin. Tshuva is mainly about restoring the perspective that we had before we came down. In other words, coming to our true selves. That's a way of understanding tshuva. Restoring the hay, the animal which has wandered away because we've been invested in an animal, has to find its way back. And in finding its way back, the word tshuva comes together, and the wholeness that existed in the first place is recreated. So that's tshuva. Tonight we're going to talk about how to do it. And that's where we are at the bottom of the page. All right, so those of you who are looking at the, I published the text in the Facebook Live in Chassidus at K WhatsApp, and we at the table have it here. And once again, for those of you who are new to the class, and there are always a few, although I've been talking all the time and I'm going to read inside and translate, it's mainly, the class is mainly gets excited when people participate. Ask questions. Levi! Could it happen? Could it happen? We know Levi for a long time. It could happen. All right. Ready? The secret, the path, the one operative word that you want to know about how to do tshuva, how to restore yourself to the self that originates on high, which in other words is restore the sense of divinity in everything that you do, is the second word on the second line on our bracket on the bottom of the page. Tzedakah. And this is what we're going to explore at length tonight. Tzedakah. V'anon tzedakah teremim goyim. So we have a pasuk in Proverbs that says tzedakah will lift up the nations. We're going to say, what is tzedakah? Well, let's talk before we get too far into it. Who can tell me what tzedakah is? What is tzedakah?
Giving to another person.
Giving to another person. Giving what?
Something they need.
Yeah, whatever they need.
Right, whatever they need.
Whatever they need.
Right.
And this, by the way, is exactly what Hashem does when He creates. To elaborate just a little bit, you're talking about a receiver who needs, and this, in the understanding of Chassidus and Kabbalah, is the worlds. The worlds are in need. The worlds can't exist without Him, without His divinity. So, as it says at the beginning, Olam b'chesed yibana, that the world was built with kindness, so it's tzedakah. It's a great tzedakah, a great compassion, rahmanis, mercy, and kindness that Hashem creates us, because we have nothing, and we are totally obligated to Him and loving of Him because of the fact that He gives us the most precious thing we have, which is our life. So, when we model that tzedakah by giving to a poor person, in, as you said, Esther, in any way it is, whatever the person needs, whether it's monetary, whether it's emotional, whether it's teaching and learning, whatever it is. So we're modeling Hashem's most deepest behavior, because all the midos, the seven midos with which He creates, begin with Hesed. Hesed is the first of the midos. So, Tzedakah Teremim Goy. So the Pasuk in Mishlei says, Tzedakah will lift up nations. And which nation is he speaking about? All the nations of the world, but particularly Zeh Yisroel. This is the Jewish nation. Kamasha Kosid, as is written, Mika Amacho Yisroel Goy Echad Ba'oretz. It's a pasuk. Who is like your nation, Israel, the one singular nation in the world? Now, we don't take this as a compliment that we're singular in that we are totally better than everybody else. The way that Chassidus understands it, we are a nation who's been commanded and made responsible for bringing the echad, the sense of unity, into the world, to bring godliness down here in the world. Now, all human beings that are obligated in that through the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noah, through the other mitzvahs in the Torah, but the Yidden, in addition to those, have been given other commandments, and these commandments connect us with Hashem, and these connecting with Hashem means to bring the sense of and the awareness of godliness in the world. Now, where is that sense of godliness blocked? Where don't we see it? It's our animal that doesn't see it. Our godly soul sees it. The problem is that the godly soul is encased in an animal soul. Now that's a problem to be solved. It's not a destiny. It's a problem to be solved. God knows what He's doing when He puts the godly soul inside the animal soul. So the Nefesh Bahamas, the animal soul, the bottom of the page, Shal Yodei HaTzedakah She'odam Oise Nefredis V'Nevdelis Nefesh Bahamas Min Hara Gomer. In giving tzedakah, what you're doing is taking the self-serving, self-preoccupied naturalness of the animal soul. The animal is generally preoccupied with himself, and bringing it to a state of selflessness, because you're giving away something of yours. And there are dinim in the Torah about how much you're supposed to give away. An average commandment, everybody's commanded a tenth. And a mitzvah mufla, a mitzvah to do even better, is to give a fifth. And he says when speaking about tshuva, in Hilchos Tshuva, that one who needs to do tshuva, who has done really something negative or some things negative that need to be repaired, should give without limit. In other words, neither keneged neither. You give without limit, God gives without limit. So that's the way it goes. Good evening. Welcome. John. I haven't seen you in a long time, John. Come sit down.
Welcome back.
Welcome home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about tshuva, and we're talking about how to do tshuva. What's the ikr? The main root of tshuva is tzedakah. Tzedakah meaning you give of yourself, Hashem will give of you, give to you. You give more than you normally give, Hashem will give more than He normally gives. Tzedakah teremim goy. Tzedakah lifts up the nation. So, and what has to be given over is the given over, we call it the animal soul. It's all of the natural things that, as I said earlier, nothing negative necessarily. All the just natural pleasures and natural occurrences that we have to be infused with a sense of divinity. And it's interesting. Sometimes you could look at that as an obligation, and sometimes you could look at it as a gift. If you can infuse everything that you do with divinity, everything becomes much more multi-level, deeper, richer. So that's what we're here to do, to make the experience richer by giving over animal soul. Now the top of the left-hand column. And if the animal has drawn us into negativity, meaning those things that God has commanded we shouldn't do, so how much more so that we have to bring back the hora hagoma, anything that's completely evil, u'mesuremim es gam hi, and lift it up also, liyes kol midai sov lebosheho leHashem levadei, so that one's entire garments of thought, speech, and action, one's thought, speech, and action are all lifted up to Hashem. And this is the level of what the Chachamim call the Baal Shuva, and Shehafligu Razal. Our sages distinguished the Baal Shuva, the Malosam, in terms of the level of the Baal Shuva. The Omru, when they said, "B'makom sheBaal Shuva oimdim," that in a place that Baal Shuva stand, Tzadikim Gemorim can't stand. Now, a drop of explanation. First of all, if you learn any Tanya, you know that the tzaddik is higher than the Baal Shuva, right? And the Baal Shuva is the one who can become what's called a Beinoni, a middle person, right? But what's great about that? What's great about that is that there's a power that comes from overcoming that doesn't come from being gifted. So tzaddikim, it's amazing that they have no struggle. They have no struggle. That one can become a tzaddik. Even in the Tanya says, halavai tzaddik, halavai beinoni. But if it's a gift, if you're gifted, and it's possible that Hashem could gift you, they could even become a tzaddik. But when you become a tzaddik, you have completely transformed yourself. You're there. And when you're there, there's no place else to go. I mean, I'm saying this kind of advisedly because there's always infinite places to go. But in terms of turning something around, taking a problem and finding a solution, taking a challenge and making it and turning it into an opportunity. The challenge part and the problem part, can get very depressing, can get you very uptight. But if you have the will, the spirit, and the gift to be able to turn it around, then as we said, I think last week we talked about the slingshot. The sling, when you pull it way back, it goes, or the catapult. That's an example, a metaphor that's given a lot in Chassidus. When they laid siege to Jerusalem or other cities. What did? They took a big cedar and put a payload on it, and the cedar, the payload starts up at, say, this place right here. They pulled it way back, and it flies way higher than where it went. So that's the propellant energy of Shuva. So it's a very interesting, I think, balance here. That on the one hand, the Mishnah says, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? So there has to be a definite amount of acceptance of who you are, because non-accepting of who you are can lead to depression and all kinds of negative things. But it's a twofold thing. It says, like David HaMelech said, one part of me is feeling down, and another part of me is feeling up. So the part of you that's holding, that is who you are, needs to say to the part of you that is always in you, that can be more, needs to get a voice to say, yeah, you're good, you're okay. But not you're okay, but there's many layers of this ladder that you haven't climbed yet. And climbing them will take you to a much higher place. And from there you'll again say, okay, I accept where I am now, but at the same time I want to and crave to be in touch with that propelling energy to go higher and higher. Shlomo Kalbar's song, right? Get me higher. That doesn't mean you don't that you're not happy with yourself and able to accept yourself. What does the Mishnah say? Ezehu, right? Huh? Usher. Ezehu usher. Who's a rich man? One who's happy with his or her lot. Right? So for this we need to, number one, be accepting of where we are, and number two, at the same time, be driven and inspired to get even further. So Miriam, you're coming in, reminded me at the beginning of this year. It's written on the Facebook Live, but two things. This year is this class every week is dedicated to the Elias Neshama of Shlomi ben Moshe, Bundi Freundlich, who was a great friend of all of us. And this week and last week, it's also given for the Refuah Shlema of Chana Edel Bas Miriam. Right? And I wanted to put it out there for any of you in Facebook land or at the table. I think it's a good idea week to week. If any of you have any Refuah Shlemas that you...
There's so many.
Pardon me?
There's so many of them.
No, I mean, but just there aren't that many people in our audience here. So
no, I mean, like there's so many people that I know that are sick. Like, tons of people that are sick.
Yeah, about your mother.
What? Not just my mother. Also other people.
There are tons of people who need Refuah Shlema.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if anybody out there wants to give a specific name, we'll be happy to mention it, so that, because in the schus of Limud Torah, when we, this David HaMelech says about the Torah, that your words are in my mouth. God's words are in, so when we speak in words of Torah, we're speaking what God speaks. And when we combine those words of Torah with words of prayer, then everything rises up and everything comes down from the Refuah Shlema with ultimate and great blessings. So, as we said earlier, actually, we said, Tzedakah Torenim Goy, that our giving lifts up the nation. So we give thanks to God, and we give praise to God, and we ask God to give us Refuah Shlema for anybody who needs it, and Refuah Shlema for this seemingly broken world that we live in right now, that it should be healed. So each with it, so we're going to come across a pasuk, a Maimar Chazal later, that tshuva brings healing to the world, and it's very obvious why. If you think about what we said earlier, tshuva is returning the hay. There's a state of brokenness. The hay is broken off, and to the extent that we can individually restore the hay to ourselves, meaning restore our own connection to God individually, that produces a ripple effect in the world at large. And when the world is healed, everything gets healed. So, the Chachamim extolled, distinguished the quality of the Baal Shuvah, because the power of Shuvah is like the catapult. You've gone, in a sense, way back, away, however that means to each and every one of us, and from there, you propel yourself forward. You're smiling. Why are you smiling? Okay. Oh, by the way, I can see smiles out there in the Facebook land also, and anyone who would like to comment or throw in any kind of a question or a comment, please do. Feel free. Okay, so we're going to go further. Esther, are you with us?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm getting a better sound solution.
Better sound solution.
Figuring it out.
I hope you're able to help couple with both of them. Okay. So fourth line down. Okay, that extolling the virtues of the Baal Shuvah. Because all the attributes of the animal soul, the etzem itziyusam, in their essential state of existence, hen takifim v'chazkim yeser, they are stronger, more powerful, mehamidas hakadoshah shebenefesh elokis, than the midos of the godly soul. I'll say it again because that may not be so obvious. The powers of the animal soul are greater than the powers of the godly soul, right? Because the metaphor that there are many metaphors for this. The one that comes to mind I've been liking lately is a metaphor from the Alter Rebbe, that the stallion can take a man, a human, to the place that a human can't reach on his own, to the tops of the craggy mountains, or to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. So we see that there's a power in the animal that the man has not on his own. The man is the nefesh elokis, the godly soul, and the animal is the animal soul. So when one brings back, reins in, harnesses, whatever you want, this word you want to have, for the animal, it elevates not only the animal is fulfilling its destiny, but now the animal can lift the human as well. Because the animal comes actually from a higher place than the godly soul. The reason is this, as he says, the reason the animal can lift up the man is because the root of the animal soul is deeper, closer to God's essence than the godly soul. Now everyone around the table is nodding their head like, of course. Right? Is this really an of course? Would you have, you knew this, right? That the animal soul is rooted higher than the godly soul? You didn't?
That doesn't make
No,
sense.
it doesn't make sense. So, we'll have a brief explanation. And this is something that a lot of Kabbalah, and particularly the understanding of Kabbalah through Chassidus, writes about. Excuse me a second. The world that we live in, and I don't mean just the physical world, but all the spiritual worlds that empower this world and go up and up and up to what's called the highest world, which is the world of Atzilus. The world of Atzilus. All of them are under the rubric of what we call Tikkun, the world of rectification. Now, why is it called the World of Rectification? Well, something needs to be rectified, right? Something needs to be repaired. The metaphor for this is right in Bereshis, when he creates Adam, and lo and behold, not too many hours later, Adam is expelled from the garden. Adam and Chava. The beautiful, tranquil, divine revelation place called Gan Eden, we're expelled from there. And we're expelled from there from that time until now, including now. Why? We have to get ourselves back to the garden. We have to rectify. So the breakingness is a prerequisite for the rectification. Actually, there's a halach in Gemara Shabbos about destroying something on Shabbos. So there's two kinds of destruction. There's a destruction to get rid of something, and there's a destruction in what is soiset al manas binyan, to destroy in order to build. You clear, you had a shack on a piece of property. You buy the property, you destroy the shack in order to create who knows what, a synagogue, a Beis HaMikdash, right? So this world needs fixing. But before, that means that there is a state that, a broken state, that needs to be repaired. Where did this brokenness come from? Where did the force that broke us out of the Gan Eden, that broke the world into shattered pieces, which is all of the things of all the worlds. Think about a metaphor that comes to mind. Think about a fireworks display. A really lovely arching fireworks, and after it explodes, all the lights just come down, 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 down. Imagine that floating through all the spiritual levels of the cosmos until they hit down here in this lowest world where they're just ashes and shards. But they're remnants of the Or Ein Sof. Now what caused the breakingness? Because deeper than the world of Tikkun is a world called Tohu. Tohu proceeds, meaning Tohu is deeper in God's consciousness than Tikkun. God's kavanah, his whole intention, is on Tikkun. But the process by which he gets there is a descent of worlds through the world of Tohu. And it's actually mentioned in Chumash Bereshis. The haaretz choyset soiru v'boihu. The earth was in a state of chaos and confusion, right? And into that state of chaos and confusion, he puts Adam and Chava to go into that confused world. And Adam and Chava, of course, are archetypes for every human that exists, and go into that broken world and fix it. Now, the power of Olam HaTohu was such that it was so overwhelmingly powerful that all of the lights which were in vessels broke the lights apart. Lights in vessels, another topic that we need to get more and more a handle on. But that's the pair. Energy is in vessels, and the lights broke the vessels. And the vessels and the light sparks of light fell. Now, what was up there? What's the powerful force that's higher than the force of an atom, of an atom, that's able to lift up an atom? That's the animal. So sometimes it's called in the language of Kabbalah the Behema Rabbah, the big animal, the big, powerful, lumbering animal that I spend a lot of time in Tannersville in the summer. And in the summer we have bears. And if you've ever seen bears lumbering around the streets, then you know that they can just find their way and just lumber into an automobile, lumber into a garage, lumber into a trash can, and they just use their brute strength. So brute strength is the quality of the Olam of Tohu. And that's the quality of the animal. And that's why the truth is that the animal is rooted higher than the man. Because the strength, the power of Tohu was overpowered the power that's in this world. And our job is to utilize the animal forces and put that world back together. They say Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall and nobody could put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Well, our job is to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Anybody else know that rhyme? I just have to make a test because I don't know if people are nodding their heads. Okay, so that's a little side note on the idea. Does it make sense? The power of the animal is greater than the power of the man. As we see, there's one more thing. Yecheskel had a vision of a chariot, and the chariot was driven by the man. The man's the one who's going to organize the world of the broken world into harmony, but his movement is all dependent on the animals who are pulling the chariot. Okay. So that's the sentence for Hatam, because the shorshan of the animal is higher than the source of a man, of a human. The next bracket, Amnam, the Amnam. So the animal, yes, is lower on the totem pole, right? Human, animal, but it's sourced higher. And this is also a principle we've spoken about many times, that this is from the Sefer Yetzirah, a Kabbalistic work attributed to Adam, to Adam Avinu. Excuse us, we need a little quiet down here. Please, shh.
Sorry.
It's tough, okay?
When I went to sit down, she sat down.
Sit over here.
Thank you, that's fine.
You sit over here.
I understand, politics is bad stuff, just goes too far.
We're just sitting down. This is not a big deal.
Thank you.
All right. So the end is wedged in the beginning. That's Sefer Yetzirah says the end is wedged in the beginning, and the beginning is wedged in the end. So the beginning is the deepest parts of haShana are wedged specifically in the end, as we'll discover more on this later when we talk about the gems in the Mishpah, the stones. Why stones? Why precious stones are so precious? But for now, we'll just leave it that way. So the lower thing, which is the animal soul, needs to reveal. It needs to be revealed to our animal where our animal really comes from. Our animal is ignorant about that. So the godly soul is going to teach, and the animal soul is going to lift. So we harness the animal to lift the animal soul up, and that's called tshuva.
That's beautiful.
Amnam. However, and that's what the Zohar says. When a person subjugates and transforms the darkness to light, there goes out, it doesn't finish it over the sentence, there goes out, there departs, there blasts up a light which illuminates the entirety of all the worlds. So that energy of the animal soul, remember, you get a lot of, there's an expression of Chazal, you get a lot of power from harnessing the ox. You get a lot of produce from harnessing the ox. The produce that we really look for is the peace and the illumination that comes with us being at peace with ourselves, and that reverberation to create peace in the world, and the reverberation even higher to create wholeness, shalom and peace are the same word, wholeness in the entire cosmos. So that's the strength that's in Kedusha. So the animal, through subjugation of the animal, so the strength of the animal is included in holiness, and this is the advantage that Bala Shuva have, as the Zohar says, they're drawn with an even greater strength. Again, the muscle of the catapult. You pull the catapult way back, you distance yourself. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. The farther away you are, the more you yearn to be close, right? Or in other words, if you pull the catapult way back, the payload will reach higher than when it was where it was in the first place. So tshuva is not to be looked at as I'm repenting and feeling bad about myself. Tshuva is the projective power to go much higher, much deeper than you ever have gone. That's the definition of tshuva that we're working with. Okay, now Ois Gimel. So now we're talking about Elul, right? And we said about Elul.
It's all working now.
Pardon me?
It's working now.
What?
It's working now. The sound.
It's working. Okay.
All systems operational.
What?
All systems go.
All systems go.
operational.
All systems go.
Yes.
Okay.
Snafu. You know what a snafu is?
Okay, fine.
Situation normal, all screwed up.
Okay, so now that everything is working, we expect to see lots of comments from out there in the Facebook land, right? So far, we just had the fact that Jonathan just arrived was announced a half hour ago. Jonathan was waiting for the bus, and now Jonathan's here,
Well, welcome.
so he can't tell us on Facebook.
I know.
So he's here.
I should announce it beforehand, but you know
Okay,
what? I
so-
figured you started and I let you know that I was trying to come.
Okay,
So
fine. Well, it's good you're here. Glad to have you. Now, you want a copy of this? Are
yes,
you a
thank
Hebrew
you.
reader?
Thank you. Yes, I
Yeah,
am.
okay, fine.
From many moons ago.
Excellent. So we're holding Ois Gimel. Zehu over in the left-hand column, bracket. Zehu Inyan is Galus Yud Gimel Midas Horachan, and the Elul. So now we're going to see how this works. I mean, we talked generally how it works. It works through tzedakah, going out of yourself The animal is involved with himself, pretty much selfish.
Where are we? Gimel, Rabbi? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it's Gimel, yes.
Gimel, thank you.
And we want to go out of ourselves, and when we go out of ourselves, through our animated energies, right? Through we use our animal, so we're taking our animal and bringing it, and subjugating it, and harnessing it, and bridling it, and whatever the other metaphors you want to use, in the service of holiness. And as a result of that's our arousal from below. That's the ani l'doidi part of Elul. I am to my beloved. And this brings about this galus yud gimel midas harachim and be'elul. These are the revelations of the 13 attributes of mercy be'elul. Now, there's no magic here. You can't walk outside the door and say, okay, give me the 13. Where are they? Where are they? This is all about avoiding. This is all about a twofold avoider. One, having enough acceptance of yourself or enough ego strength so you feel capable of advancing, and then putting the energy into advancing. And with that, there is an acceptance of all that, because that's exactly what you were created for, what we have been created for. And that capability, that accessibility to that is available in the month of Elul. That's the awareness, the Yud Gimel Midas Harachim in Elul, which precede the Yud Gimel Midas Harachim in Maseres Tshuva, which is in the time of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Kihina b'Seseres Tshuva, because what happens on those days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Misgalim Rachmim Rabim, the great mercies are revealed. Acher Kedimas HaTshuva, after the return that we do down here below, as the Zohar says, Ki be'Yisarusa d'Lasato Dafke, it's specifically through an arousal from below that Azayia Yisarusa d'La'ela. There's a cause and effect. It's also something that's kind of wondrous to ponder. The God.
I like that expression. Wondrous to ponder.
Because it is. Think about this.
Please don't think
God,
about
who's the
these things.
Shlemut the Kula, who has everything and is missing nothing. For some reason, it rose up in his mind to create us who have nothing, who are nothing, who are garnished, literally, compared to him. And in addition to that, he set it up that our little garnished things that we are will influence what he does. And we'll see that on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, on Rosh Hashanah, we're going to pray that God's kingship should be renewed in the world. We're going to pray that God should come down, re-engage himself, so to speak, with the world. And he's made it that we little nothings down here, when there's a beautiful Hayom Yom that he says that Kabbalah and Chassidus teach a person how small he is and how great he can become.
Right.
And the two are related. The smallness, the lowness, the bittul leads to greatness. Not an egotistical greatness, but a true greatness. So, this is this arousal from below brings an arousal from above. Kumavur b'Zohar, as explained in the Holy Zohar, on the pasuk, there's a pasuk, excuse me, in Iyov. It says, "Im Yosiv Elov Liboy," if you will give your heart, and it goes on and says, if you will give your heart, your spirit, and your soul, you will be gathered to him. When you give yourself over, he will be given over to you. And as expresses in the Zohar, Ruach Asir Ruach, spirit brings spirit. Ma'amshik Ruach, and draws down spirit. So when we bring our spirits from below to above, when we give our will and our heart to Hashem in the way of as much as we can possibly muster, which is dependent on the strength of our yearning and the strength of our feeling separate, right? And the more we give, the more we will get. We'll get an even stronger emergence of the Yud Gimel Midas Harachim from above, even stronger. So in proportion to what we give, we get, right? As it says, according to what we give, from above to below. What we give from below to above proportionally brings down from above to below. If we're doing it with our ma'oid, with everything we've got, so Hashem will do it with everything He's got. Shabli what's He got is unlimited. These are the 13 attributes of mercy which we say in the Siddur. Now, Elul has something very special in it. You could say, okay, this sounds very nice, but you know what? I'm not so motivated. I hear it. It's very nice. That if I were motivated, then according to the level of my motivation, I'll get from Him, right? So Hashem does something which is expressed not in this manner, but as we all have heard in Lubavitch, the king is in the field, right? So he comes out, the mashal, it's the Alter Rebbe's original mashal. The kid comes out to the field to greet us where we are. There's an emergence of something, as I said, in the air. There's an air of Elul. So that air of Elul is what brings us...
I heard that expression, the law is in the air, but the person that said it in Midwood was making reference to something else. She didn't mean the king is in the field, Hashem is, the law is in the field. She's making reference to something a little bit different.
Okay.
That's a good reference.
So in order for us to get aroused at all, that will return to Hashem, restore that hay, the brokenness, with all of our soul and all of our might. So the Gankim is that also takes some arousal from above. It's a pasuk. From on high, Hashem will awaken the spirit of God. The spirit of Hashem will awaken Al Yisroel, on the Jewish people, Amehu are His people. La'oidei levavim, to arouse their hearts. Sheyitzaku al Hashem, that we will cry to God. L'toicham, from our very, very depths. Nekudas levavim, from the depths of our heart. V'zeu inin his galus yudgumim serachimim sheba Elul. And that's what it means, the revelation of the Yudgumim in Elul.
So I was learning a mimer on Shabbos. From Teres Menachem, Lukat, right? I think it actually quoted this mimer from the Alter Rebbe, which the Rebbe, I'm not sure if it adds to it or the Rebbe is basically saying that the awakening that we're getting is to access the Yod Gimel Midas Rachamim. So it's like, meaning that even though Hashem, the king, is in the field, it means that he's available to us, but that doesn't mean that we're gonna, right? So something has to...
Yeah, good. But when you know someone's available to you and you're interested, so...
Right, well, we're talking about when you're not interested. What if you don't have that interest, right? It says Hashem will give you an awakening, but then it goes back to saying that the awakening is a Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim. So it doesn't make sense. And over here, it's not making sense to me.
Okay, I'll give you an example.
Isn't the king in the field the fact that there is this power, this Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim, that's available for...
I was sitting on my doorstep once years ago in a tenement in Boston, Massachusetts. Not so tshuva that could kind of arouse it at all. Maybe the opposite. And from a window somewhere, I heard someone playing the piano. It happened to be a guy who's a well-known jazz musician. His name is Larry Coryell. He's a guitarist. Larry Coryell's a guitarist. And he has a pianist with him, and they were practicing. And I don't know, it was like out of nowhere, something moved me. Right? I wasn't looking for it. If you had asked me after it was over, was I hoping something like that would happen in my life? Yeah, and it was just a little thing. Well, my battery is running down. I don't know why. So, it's in the air. Whether you're, I would have to say, fortunate enough or can tune into it. I mean, you can, knowing some of this stuff, you can posture yourself to get an ear to listen. But not everybody hears it.
Right, and the expression is also that panim yafais, what's the other things? Seichakais, right?
Yeah, there were the panim yafais and
a smiling face and a nice countenance and a smiling face.
Okay. So what's the Rebbe? I don't remember.
No, so over here the Alter Rebbe is saying something different. The Alter Rebbe is saying that the awakening is the Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim.
That's what he's giving you. He gives you these. He gives you. Let's look at his language, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In order for you to arouse yourself,
right?
To want to come close and give yourself away. That you want to return to Hashem. So the Gamkim is odorous milamayla. There has to be some arousal, like a little push from above. And this is the pasuk. From on high, Hashem awakens, arouses the spirit of Hashem to the Jewish people, who are his people, who are his nation. La'oreh levavim. He gives something out that is meant to touch the heart of a person, so that a person will, yitzaku el Hashem, cry out to God.
That doesn't mean that the person's receiving it or open to receiving it. It just means that the energy is there to give it.
The energy is there. It's accessible. Whether you can access it or not.
Okay, so he's not saying something
else.
different. He's just saying the energy is accessible.
It's
that doesn't,
accessible.
but it's there for you. But that doesn't mean you're actually going
Right.
to be awakened
Hopefully,
to do it.
that's what I mean. Hopefully, some of our learning will allow us to get more more awareness. If you know
Right.
something's there, so at least okay. They told me it's there. I believe them. I trust them. It's the Torah is telling me. Let me see what I can do to access it. But if you don't know it's there, as I said, the majority of Jews in the world today are not necessarily
Right.
saying, "Wow, feel that." No, they're not.
Well, in New York, it's easy. You feel the chill in the air.
Huh?
during
We're
Elul.
not either.
Well, if you're not, then
You need to learn
try.
what
No, I'm not, it's not like an ultimatum. It's just like these words are meant to be meditations that will bring you
Right.
there, right? Imachshava in the heart, right? If you put these words in your heart, as I said, knowledge of the presence of something, that sounds like it's a good. If someone told
I mean,
you,
like, we don't have the world is still.
pardon me,
We have this concealment, like when we hear.
the world is concealed, right? So you're absolutely right.
One must do.
So one
right?
second. So where do we find the light that's going to be turned so it can turn? We find it in the Torah, right? Torah or the Alter Rebbe's first major publication. I mean, it isn't really, but about Sefer Bereshit. It's called Torah or. In the Torah is where you'll find the light. That means in meditation, contemplation, of course, in understanding what's in the Torah, gradually one's mind, it's a makeover. It's a makeover of the mind, right? Because it isn't revealed out there. But it creates a sensitivity to it. If someone told you that there was well, it's hard to imagine, let's say in my case, there was somebody out there who could give me the key to never being depressed. At least I'd be interested in talking to that person, right? So here they're telling you there is something going on. How are you going to discover it is by looking right here. And it either works or it doesn't work. And it works over time. Was it Rabbi Akiva who said the Torah is like water dripping on a stone? It took him 40 years,
Yeah.
right? But know that it is. Know that there is emes, there is truth. And you're absolutely right, Miriam, the truth is not in front of our eyes. The truth that's out there is covered by the materiality of this world. The Torah is a way of mining it. So, there is a voice out there. We just have to learn how to hear it. And if we hear it, it's calling us back and asking us to cry, to tzaiku el Hashem, to cry out to Hashem, because we know that there's a destination, and the destination is the word shalom, emes, truthful, wholeness. And we want wholeness, right? We don't want to be broken people. Or we don't want to be hurting. So we'll cry out for God to help us. And this is the idea of the king in the field. He's coming out for you there. But you have to be there. That's another point. If you're not in the field, you're not going to see it, right? So I was
That's what
absent.
I'm
I was
saying.
absent that day.
Right, so
Yeah.
what gets the average regular person who's not learning Chassidus, who doesn't know about the king being in the field, what gets them
What gets them started?
get them go
usually,
and search
I can
for it?
just tell you from
Someone
experience
playing
of meeting
piano
a lot
or
of
guitar,
people,
like, no.
it could be like hearing,
Right.
hearing something ethereal and just getting more and more ethereal, or it could be just the opposite, total brokenness. Total brokenness. I've reached the end of the line. That's another way. End of the line.
The door.
I mean, I once said, and I told you, one of the things that actually got me inspired to get into all of this stuff, which is initially, it's all new and it's different. Changing habits isn't easy, right? But I wanted to have a family. And my thoughts were, what would I teach my kids? And I'm not going to teach my kids. I could teach him how to play a horn. I could teach him how to ride a bike. You know, but really, like, what's life all about? Remember, there's an old song, Bob Dylan song, called Masters of War. It says, "You've hurled the worst fear that's ever been hurled, the fear to bring children into the world." Because the world is broken. I'm broken. So that can be a motivator. Fear can, not fear, but despair can be a motivator. And love can be a motivator. Those are usually the two that come to mind. I want more. But you have to know that there is an infinite pool of goodness that's reachable. An infinite pool of goodness and warmth that's reachable, it's tangible. And you don't know it, you're right, Esther, you don't know it if you haven't come across something in your life, whether it's...
The thing is that you have so many people who like get hit with such inspiration and spirituality, but then they go like to the wrong places.
Yes, looking for love in all the wrong places. That happens too.
Or spirituality in all the wrong
Well,
places.
yeah, but spirituality is in a sense love. It's like connecting, right?
Right, connection.
It's all about connection.
Right.
And I'm looking for connection in all the wrong places. So, so again, a lot of the discovery of the right places is when you crash. You spend 30 years looking for love. Love meaning, in quotes, connection, wholeness, union, compatibility, and you go from one relationship to another. And
I say connect with yourself first.
huh?
Connect with yourself first.
Yes, good. Connect with yourself first. But I'm telling you, and I'm not saying, it's not telling you it's not the right language. I'm saying that where you'll find the instruction book for doing it is here. There ain't emes ela Torah.
Except this is not the,
There's no truth except Torah.
what I mean is, this is not easy for the regular person to learn.
It's not easy. Not a lot of Torah is easy.
Right.
Taking on the mitzvahs is not easy. Studying halacha, and it's not easy. I mean, no one said it would be easy. It's a broken world. It takes a broken world, broken people. It takes a lot of energy to put things back together again. It's harder to put things back together again than when they were not broken in the first place, right? My grandkid comes to me with 2 pieces of plastic. He says, "Fix this." I don't even know what it is. Just fix this. I can't help you. I'm sorry. But and Hashem did this by design. He said, "I'm going to give you a challenge and a responsibility, but I'm also going to give you the instruction book and how to put it back together. And I'm going to let you know that when you put it back together, you're going to have achieved something greater than ever existed.
Than you originally started out. Right.
Is it the Japanese or the Chinese that take broken dishes and mold them back together with gold?
Japanese.
It's Japanese.
Okay? So,
Okay.
I think. Don't quote me.
I have 5% battery remaining, so this may be the...
Broken vessels.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll have 5% gets us far. Let's turn the page.
By the way, it's great to see Johnny here. I've known Johnny for many, many years.
Metaphorically or
This Johnny, I've known him for years. Jake too. Maybe for years and years.
Okay.
Johnny's my counterpart. It's diddly dee and diddly do.
Page
It's been a few
50,
years.
I got my little bracket.
Or 50?
Page
No,
50, 50.
Wrong page.
Okay. So when you make the connection, right, however you get aroused to make the connection, God willing, we will all get aroused to want to make the connection and find the path that will connect us there. V'zehu zrocha lachem yireh shmi shemes tzedakah. It's a pasuk. I will shine to you, God says. In other words, he said, you come to me, I will shine to you. You give me your strength, I will give you more strength than you could ever imagine. So this is the pasuk says, and I will shine to you, to those who fear my name, a son of tzedakah, shemesh tzedakah, umerapa kanfeha, which will heal your wings. So what is a lovely piece of poetry? What does it mean? This is what our sages said in Perek Beis of the Gemara Yuma about Yom Kippur. They said the following expression: Gedoyle teshuva shemevi refuah la'olam. Great is tshuva, because it gives healing to the world. Now again, tshuva, just the basic. If you had nothing more in your mind to say tshuva, what does it mean? That there's a state where the hay is broken off from the rest of Raneh. There's some state in that every one of us out here can find some state in ourselves where we feel, if not broken, but at least aspiring to something more whole, something more connected, more connectedness, more revelation, whatever it is. And to the extent that we're not there, that's called the state where the hay is separated, and we want to bring it together. And what happens when you bring it together? That state that I'm talking about, and again, it doesn't have to be so stark a state that a person is like, at the end of his rope or her rope, but just any state of that you feel of need, of wanting and aspiring to greater connectedness, greater wholeness. That's called healing, because as the Alter Rebbe explains very nicely in the chapter in Tanya, that a healed or a healthy organism is where all the parts are integrated in the way they're supposed to be. And if any one part is not, there's a brokenness, and it causes the opposite of health. So when things come together, that's what tshuva is, bringing the hay back, it creates peace, it creates a healing in the world. It may be refuah la'olam, it brings refuah to the world. Ki avainos nikrayim makos b'tzoyim, because one's sins are called makos, which is you hit something, or b'tzoyim, which is wounds. You wound yourself when you take yourself away from the derech Hashem.
It's interesting because part of it has to do with being in a kahila, a community.
Well, kahila, yeah, of course.
Supportive. It's very hard to be in an island when you're forced out of the community.
Yeah, it's awful when you're forced out of the community, right?
Especially when someone brings you into a non-religious community.
Sure, take it down. It's awful when you're...
it depends which ear they got.
Sure.
Not easy.
That's just the opposite. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Maybe that's a way of, addressing us, or partly at least your question, to the feeling that one has from a broken state, that could be you're forced out of a community. That's one. It could be a friendship that fell apart, after years and years. It could be
support from a community. Your Yiddishkeit, Judaism, Daf Yomi, Shul, everything. Yeah. Someone who's either a tin-plated dictator,
but that's
nice.
your particular.
But it's rather. I survived alone in Westchester. Being Shomer Shamas around non-Jews for a long time.
But just so you know, on the flip side, a lot of people look at the communities, let's say, as a crutch.
Not a crutch, but if you have to get kosher food.
Well, meaning...
Take that to the extreme. How many times have you heard that religion is a crutch?
Right. So I'm saying that there's the flip side to everything. So
you can make the argument.
The Baal Shem Tov went into the forest for years alone.
Of course, like, go into the forest and daven by yourself. Yes.
What I'm saying is that everybody.
But he had Sarah. He had Sarah. Imenu. He had his children.
She's talking about when they did his boy.
No, when he spied us, he got many people that we've learned from. Many of our righteous people that we learned from got closest to God by being alone.
This is true, but if you do it for an elongated period of time, in the subject, we have communities, because if we're in Galus, we're outside of Eretz Yisrael, we don't have the Beit HaMikdash, at least we have a kahila outside to give us strength. Whether it's Daf Yomi to study with the Charusa. So if you're pushed outside of the community, that's as if you're pushed onto Galus to the second power.
Yeah.
So, and then sometimes people exploit that, whatever the reasons are. Even the sinat hinam that exists.
Right, but let's not go too far.
Sorry, I won't go
if God is putting.
But no, I know the idea of being alone. I grew up in Westchester as a Jew, but I wasn't around a religious community. I'm about tshuva. But sometimes people take that as.
Jonathan, if Hashem is putting you in a place where of isolation, that's the place you're starting from. That's where you're going to find a way.
Well, that's where Hashem wants you to be, obviously.
Right.
And He wants you to come find a way back.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He wants you to be healed. Because tshuva, come back, find another community, find another group of people, get a sense of people who are, more to.
I've come back to the Midwood for 7 years.
A good friend of mine, 79 years old, he's almost turning 80. He's selling everything and moving to us out in Shtakim in Eretz Yisroel, because he knows people there, and he feels like that's the next place in his life where he's going to find people, because he knows them with whom he can groove. So. Seek out the wholeness. That's the point. Seek out the place and the opportunities for wholeness.
As if someone sent us on a
Okay, ready? We're going to try to see if we can get further with this. Okay, I'm just going to say at least okay. See my arrow on the page that goes up to Dalet?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, with understanding this that we've said, remember the beginning. There was an argument in heaven between Gabriel and Michael as to what was the stone. Was it there were two, a Shoham and a Yishma, right? So there we in Chad Omer Shoham, one says Shoham, and Chad Omer Yishba. V'shneihem divrei Elokim chayim, and God says, let it be like both of you. Both of them are true. So what does it mean? Yehine Kasiv, it's written, Ufasachto aleihem shemes, Bnei Yisrael, about the chaysim, the breastplate, the commandment to Aaron. You should engrave upon them the names of the children of Israel. Yeah, because see, when it's written, V'nosha Aaron as shemes, he put the names on there of the children of Israel. L'zikorim, that there should be a remembrance lifnei Hashem. Shehashneim oser adnei haChoshen, the 12 stones of the Choshen, Chasuv aleihem is written on them, Shmeis Hashvatim, the names of Shvatim, the Seder Todoisam, in their order. Oidem is Ruvain, a stone called an Oidem red, maybe it's a ruby, was Ruvain, etc. The Aaron Shushvinu Maturani, so an Aaron who in the Zohar is called the Bridegroom, the one who accompanies the bride, if we are the bride, he's the one who brings us along. Hayamayla Oisam, he would raise them up, because each one of the Shvatim, of course, are roots for all of the Jewish people. Lifnei Hashem, Lamayla Mayla Mebichin Hashem Avaya, higher than the Shem Avaya. That's hinted at in the word Lifnei Hashem. This is you'll see this over and over again in Chassidus. Lifnei means in the face of, and it also means Lepinimius, means to the innermost dimension. So Lifnei Hashem is not just in front of Hashem, but it's in a very deep level of Hashem. So he lifts us up to that level. Because of Mathmaram is written in the place.
Is that literal though? That he would take the Choshen Mishpat and lift it up with the?
No. In doing that, and fulfilling this, he's doing a spiritual avoiding, right? He's elevating us. Now the question is, how do these gems? What's with the gems? Why the gems in particular?
They would light up with words. No?
Yeah, but why? They were. Well, let's see what happens. He's going to explain to us where the illumination of gems comes from.
The illumination. Okay.
Where the light comes from a diamond. That's his question. Why was the Choshen
on gems?
Yeah, with and the names all with precious stones? Why?
Well, they were engraved in the stones, no?
Yeah, but he's asking, why the stone? Could have engraved them in metal. Could have engraved them in gold, silver. There were precious metals. Why stones? Who? So he's going to give you the reason. It's Alter Rebbe Gashmi. So he's going to tell you something about diamonds and emeralds that nobody ever heard before. When it comes to the physical world, Kitam Segulas Malachim B'Kli Yokar, Segulas the Malachim B'Kli Yokar. When it comes to the king's most precious items, right? It's his crown. It's not anything. It's not his horse. It's not his guy. It's his crown. And the crown we see is full of Avanim Toiva, Stafka, specifically precious stones.